Okay, so we're going to keep going. So in the last section, or in the first section, or what we should know, I suppose, is that a term is a part of an expression. So a term is like one of the words in our sentence. So a term might be like 2x or 4y, or it might just be 7. Okay, it could just be a number, it could be a constant, or it could have a letter, which we call a variable. What we're going to look at then is what happens when we multiply these terms, so these smaller parts. What happens when they're multiplied by each other? So to look at that, we're just going to start by kind of leading us through it and looking at things that we know already. So if we have 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, we can rewrite that using what we call powers, or indices. And the number at the top here, this power, tells us how many times are we multiplying. So how many times do I multiply 2 by itself? So how many times am I multiplying 2 by itself? And if we look here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 2 multiplied by itself 4 times, which gives me 2 to the power of 4. Same way than the next one. How many times am I multiplying 3 here? I'm multiplying it 5 times, so I get 3 to the power of 5. This 4 is going to be 4 to the power of 2. We should know 4 to the power of 2 is 16. Okay, we can do a similar thing with the rest of them. If we apply that same idea to our letters, to our variables, if I have x multiplied by x, how many times am I multiplying x by itself? Well, we have 1, 2. So it becomes x squared. Similarly then, if I have y multiplied by y, and remember here that the brackets mean multiply. Okay, brackets mean multiply, and we saw that previously. We've seen that before. That's not new to us. But just so that we remember, brackets mean multiply. They're another way of saying multiply. So y multiplied by y gives me y squared. So I'm saying that I'm multiplying y by itself twice. So in algebra, we've already seen that instead of if we write 4x, that means 4 multiplied by x. So we don't use that multiply sign, we just keep it simpler and write 4x. So if we kind of apply that then to other questions, if I have x multiplied by 3x, well, we could break it down a little bit more, and that would be the same as x multiplied by 3 multiplied by x. Remember, 3x is the same as 3 multiplied by x. And we said in the last video we can change the order around here, it doesn't matter. It gives us the same answer. And we should know then that x multiplied by x is x squared. So my overall answer becomes 3x squared. So what has happened here? What has happened in this case? X multiplied by x giving us x squared. So we got 3x squared. If we look at the question, what we've done is we've multiplied the x by the other x. And what has the 3 been multiplied by? Well, we should remember that in front of the x, there's a 1, because we have only one x there. So actually what we've done is the 1 has multiplied by the 3, and that's given us the 3 here, and the x squared here. We look at the next part, 4x multiplied by x squared. Well, let's break it down a little bit more. 4 multiplied by x is coming from the 4x here. And x squared, we already know, is the same as x multiplied by x. So if we apply the same idea here, how many x's am I multiplying? 3. So what does my answer become? 4x cubed. Okay, there is a quicker way of doing a sum like that. And what we have to think about is what the power means. So we said that if it's x squared, that means x multiplied by x. If it's x cubed, that would be x multiplied by x multiplied by x. But what if it's just x on its own? Well, if it's x on its own, we can think of it as having an imaginary 1 up the top here. Well, not imaginary, it's just hiding. Okay, we just don't write it in. So we can think of it of having a 1 up here. And if we think of it that way, what we're doing is we're taking this 1 and this 2 and we're adding them together to give us the 3. that we have down here. So we're looking at those smaller numbers and adding them together and saying, well, now I have x cubed because it's 3x's multiplied by each other. We apply the same idea to the next one, with the answer written in, let's get rid of it. So let's try and work it out for ourselves. So 2x multiplied by 3x cubed. So let's follow the two things we've learned here. So the first thing was we multiply the big numbers, the numbers in front, we multiply them by each other. To multiply the letters, we're going to add those smaller numbers up the top. Because that's going to tell us how many x's there are altogether. So let's try and apply that. So 2 multiplied by 3 gives me what? It gives me 6. And then to multiply the letters, x, we remember, has the little 1 up here, and the x cubed, and we add those together and we get x to the power of 4 as our answer. So those are the two things, and they're the two things that are written here. So if we want to multiply these two terms, we multiply the big numbers by each other. Okay, so we multiply the big numbers by each other, and by the big numbers, if we're using the correct word, which we better do, those are the coefficients. Okay, the coefficients. So we multiply them by each other. To multiply the letters, that was the green ones, we're going to add those smaller numbers. Let's try and apply that to a few more questions. So 2x multiplied by x squared. Well, we said we multiply the big numbers, but we should kind of get into the habit of, if we see one like this, where it's just x squared, we know that that's a 1 in front of it. So all that's going to happen is that my answer is still just going to be 2. In terms of the x then, we remember that this has a little 1 up here, and we add those two numbers together to tell me that this is going to become x cubed. For the next part, have to think about it a little bit more. 2x multiplied by y. This is similar to the ones we did previously. 2x multiplied by y is 2xy. All that we do is get rid of those brackets that tell us it's multiplication, because we remember that in algebra we don't use the multiply sign, so we just can write the two letters beside each other, and that still means multiply. For part 3 here, we have 4y multiplied by minus y. And we should remember again that if we can't see a number in front of the letter, then it's the same as having 1. So it's 4y multiplied by minus 1y. Let's just take that up here, or I'll take it below actually. So really what we're doing here is we're doing 4 multiplied by minus 1. Here's my first bit. And then I'm doing the y multiplied by y. Okay, those are my two sums here. So 4 multiplied by minus 1 and y multiplied by y. 4 multiplied by minus 1 gives me minus 4, and y multiplied by y gives me y squared. So it's minus 4y squared. We'll do maybe one more example here. 3x multiplied by 4x cubed y. Okay, so this is a more complicated one than we've seen already, but let's just do the same idea. So we will multiply the numbers by each other. So 3 multiplied by 4 gives me 12. Then we want to multiply the letters. So to multiply the letters, we have x multiplied by x cubed y. Well, we know when we multiply two letters that are the same, we can add those smaller numbers. So x to the power of 1 by x to the power of 3 becomes x to the power of 4. And that is still multiplied by y. So my answer overall is 12x to the power of 4 y. And if we break it down, if we kind of take this over here, breaking the whole thing down gives me 3 multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by y. So just breaking up the whole sum, where the x cubed is here. It is those 3 x's in the middle. Everything else is fairly straightforward and easy to see. Sorry, I forgot the 4 as well. Let's add that in. So 3, so multiplied by 4. Okay, there we go, that's better. So the x cubed is there. Everything else is fairly easy to see. And if we rearrange things so that they're beside each other, 3 multiplied by 4 multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by x multiplied by y. And simplifying, we know that we can get rid of those multiplies. 3 multiplied by 4 gives me the 12. All these x's, there's 4 of them all together. We're multiplying x by itself 4 times, and the y at the end as well. So what we're doing with these steps of multiply the big numbers in front, add those smaller numbers on the letters, those are just quicker ways of us doing these sums. But it's really important that you're able to do this, because this is going to help you with the next parts that we look at. So when we're multiplying, we multiply the big numbers by each other, those coefficients, and to multiply the letters, we add the small numbers. Okay, and we should maybe just add in a little note here. When we're multiplying the letters, add the small numbers when the letters are the same. So only when the letters are the same. And that's really important as well. So we obviously only add the small numbers when the letters are the same. So when we had 2xy, that just stayed as 2xy. Okay, so it can be a little confusing here, but just remember they're different numbers, and a lot of the time all we're doing is getting rid of the multiply sign. But if we follow these steps and if we practice a few sums, then we should be able to get into the swing of it fairly easily. It should follow us fairly easily, but just working through some of those questions. But those are the key things. Make sure you're multiplying those coefficients and adding the small numbers if we multiply two of the same letter.